Recording in progress.
Of course it is. Okay, we're not there yet. There we go. Okay, Alexis, I guess the rules allow for me to run this because the agenda calls for the election at the end.
Right.
So there had to be somebody, so it's me. So, okay. I will call the meeting to order. Conservation Commission Inland Wetland Agency, regular meeting Tuesday, July 12th, 6 p.m. by video conference. Welcome to everybody. Alexis, I guess a roll call now.
Okay. We have John Mailing,
Here.
Steve Hockey,
Here.
Matt Pence,
Here.
Cheryl Brown,
Here.
Jen Belliot. Yes.
I think she's muted.
There she is.
There she is.
Hi, sorry, I'm having trouble with hearing, but I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. Matt Merluzzi
Here.
and Catherine Knight.
Here.
All right. Excellent. Okay, do we have anybody online for public comments at this point?
Checking. No, it does not appear that there is anyone from the public.
Okay, then we'll move to receipt and discussion. We have three similar ones, but let's just start with the one that's S22602. That's 285 Rowayton Avenue, reconstruction of existing retaining wall with associated grading, filling, and sediment management in the 5 Mile River. I think there's a story behind this, Alexis.
Sure. So I'll start off the story and then I'm sure the applicant will tell you more. These three properties are all adjacent to each other. So 285 is in the center and then 283 is just downhill and 291 is just downstream rather. And 291 is upstream of the first one, which is 285. And I would recommend that the applicant take liberties to kind of present all three as a unit for the purposes of introducing them and where they are. But right, so the applicant will go through this, but these are retaining walls that also act as the banks of the 5 Mile River. They're masonry walls that collapsed during a storm event, and so they are here tonight to get a permit to rebuild the walls. So with that very short introduction, applicant, you are welcome to unmute and begin your presentation. So we have Joe Canis from Ty and Bond, the engineer, and then I believe we have all three property owners, Ms. Cohen, Sadiq Khan, and Wysite.
There are different remediations depending on which property we're looking at, but taking the three of them together, it addresses one problem, is my sense from looking at the materials that have already been provided. But if Mr. or whoever's representing 285 will just sort of lead off and tell us, what we need to know, what we need to hear.
Okay, great. Thank you. For the record, my name is Joseph Canis. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, principal engineer with the firm of Ty and Bond. I am also a certified floodplain manager by the Association of State Floodplain Managers. So I'll go through the application. As Alexis said, property owners for all three properties are here. as well as their contractor, Mario Gonzalez of Gonzalez Nelves. And unfortunately, our structural engineer, Tim Bartolomeo, could not be here tonight. But I'll start with a general introduction. Let me share my screen, and I'll bring up an aerial map of the area. So it'll assist everybody while we're going along here. And just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so the three properties that have the three separate applications, but very similar issues and very similar remedy is proposed are, here's Rowayton Avenue, north is up. The 5 Mile River flows here, has a 90-degree bend here, and then continues south. Over here is Darien, this is Norwalk. The three properties are 283, which is Ms. City Khan's property. 285 is Ms. Cohen's property, and 291 is Mr. Weisheit's property. So on September 1st, that was during Hurricane Ida, wind uprooted a tree. In fact, it was this tree here at 285, causing it to fall. And it was a rather large tree, and the impact of that tree caused the wall at 285 to collapse. It also caused damage that extended onto 283, as well as the southern portion of 291. Overall project will restore the wall across all three properties to pre-storm lines and grades. So we're not making the wall any higher, we're not making it any shorter. All three properties have surveys that document elevations that existed before the storm. So we have a clear, definitive endpoint of where we need to bring that wall. On the individual properties at 283, the wall will be repaired, restored, rebuilt, whatever you want to call it, about 10 feet from the property corner. The reason for that, the application right now shows the entire length. The property owners decided to cut back the length after discussions with the structural engineer to avoid impacting the retaining walls and adjoining property. So this portion of the wall on 283 will be restored, as will the existing flagstone patio. And there's a small weep hole through the wall, a pipe weep hole that will also be replaced in kind. Moving north onto 285, the entire length of the wall will be rebuilt, again, to the same lines and dimensions. There's an existing fence that's mounted atop a small retaining wall, if you can call that. It's basically a high curb. That fence and wall will also be replaced because those were damaged. And then the southern part of the wall on number 291 will be repaired. And the existing drainage pipe that goes through the wall will also continue to go through the wall. So those are the proposed changes on those properties. Like I said, we have survey that documents the pre-storm grade, so we're very fortunate to have that. And all three property owners have employed the same contractor who do all the work all at once. So
Quick question, Mr. Canis.
yes,
It looks like there's a structure there between 283 and 285 right on the floodplain. Or what is that? Maybe that's just a patio of some kind. No, to your
No.
left.
right
That,
here,
what is that?
that's a flagstone patio at grade.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so so the good news is that they do have the same contractor who will be doing this all at once. What the contractor will be doing is building a sandbag cofferdam that would extend the length of the wall repairs. Inside the core of the cofferdam will be a 24-inch pipe just to add a little bit more flow capacity to the river. And it's actually the timing worked out well in this application because this is the time of year you really want to, if you're going to be doing work on the river when water is low, conditions are dry, the summer, late summer is the best time to do it. So the sandbag cofferdam would be about 3.5 feet high. And we arrived at that height based on a hydraulic analysis of the river. We prepared a HEC-ROS model that we had obtained from FEMA a while back and evaluated what the 2-year flood elevation would be. And the reason why we looked at the 2-year is that we followed the guidance in the Connecticut DOT Drainage Manual for temporary hydraulic facilities, which a cofferdam is a temporary hydraulic facility. And based on the procedure in the DOT manual and the length of time that the cofferdam would be up, it was a 2-year was a design storm frequency. And then we added a foot to that. Because that's typical procedure when dealing anything in a flood elevation, a flood zone, always add that foot, to account for a factor of safety. What the cofferdam does, it isolates the area in front of the wall. And I believe we have it about 5 feet off the wall, 4 to 5 feet off the wall. I don't remember the exact number. But just enough area for the contractor to get in there, work, pull out the debris of the wall that collapsed, and then get in there and excavate the footing for the new wall. The footing for the new wall will be precast block. And the reason for that is it shortens the amount of setup time that they need, for the concrete to cure, because that area, is the wettest. So enables the contractor to come up quickly. They're going to pour the stem of the wall. And then once that's cured, it takes a couple days for you to be able to backfill against it.
How deep does that footing go, Mr. Connors?
Well, we did a scour analysis. The footing is between 3.5 to 4 feet deep. And that was established based on a scour analysis of the river using the hydraulic model that we had from FEMA.
Thank you.
Sure. And then, once the contractor comes up with the wall, the cofferdam can be removed and the restoration can take place on the landward side of the property, which it includes backfilling to the lines and grades that were there previously, restoring the flagstone patio, restoring the fence and the wall that it was on, those pipe connections, and then stabilizing it with grass and plantings. That's
interrupting yet again.
Oh, no, yeah, no worries.
Before the problem with Zoom is that the pictures come and go and we have to keep trying to find them when we remember. Alexis, I remember a while back, we did something with a New Jersey barrier being buried at the end of a driveway or a parking area. Is that in this area? Are we talking about more or less the same area? And if
Yes,
so,
Yes.
Mr. Canis is actually pointing to it using his cursor. So at the end of McKendree Court, right at that 90-degree
okay,
bend in the river, that the white line that is kind of between the river and the two cars parked there, that is that concrete barrier, kind of buried wall, I guess you'd call it.
okay, and that hasn't, that's still in the same condition that it was. That hasn't been affected by this storm event?
Right.
No, correct. It's held up
That-
very well.
Okay, and this what looks like a driveway, is that McKendree Court that's behind these two
Yes.
cars?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so, yeah, so the plan is, like I said, to have the contractor, work on all 3 properties concurrently, get in there and get out as quickly as they can. And there was going to be, as a result of the project, there'll be no adverse impact to the floodplain. We did the hydraulic model. We also made, we're very careful to include multiple spot elevations on the site development plans, which I'll walk you through. This is the property at 283. So this is the most downstream property. You can see here's that 90-degree bend in the river. This photo was taken in November. You can see the damaged portion of the wall to be rebuilt. And again, you can see we've clearly documented the spot elevations to make sure that the wall height is not increasing. Out here in the river is the cofferdam. Same thing for 285. Again, you can see here's a picture looking upstream of some of the damage. I'm sorry, no, this is not 285. This is 291. This is 291, right? Showing the damaged southern part of the wall. This is that small bridge that is upstream on Carolyn Court. You can see it's replacing the first 20 feet of wall on 291. And then this shows 285. You can see we're matching the existing geometry. There is that jog on the wall, all the spot elevations, the cofferdam that's continuous across the properties. And you can see the wall remnants in the river, which will be removed. So that's all I had. I just want to give a quick overview of what was going on all three of the properties. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has.
Was there any foliage involved in the erosion? I mean, were there trees, plants, apart from that big one that you're talking about? And if so, what's the plan as far as the plantings are concerned?
Right now, the plan is, just to replace, obviously at 283 there was a flagstone, and you can see here in the aerial view it's just lawn. That's what we're proposing at the moment. If the commission has specific recommendations for plantings,
What was what's the tree that, I mean, this obviously was taken, this picture was taken.
Okay, yeah, this is a tree right here.
All right, okay, so it had a reasonably good canopy, this tree.
Yes.
And it was healthy.
Well, I'm not a tree expert, so I can't say that. I mean, the fact that it fell, leads you to believe it probably had some problems.
Right. Well, I mean, putting in plantings along the edge of watercourses allows, at least eventually, for breaking up of heavy rain, and it tends to support cohesion as opposed to erosion. So it's worth considering some sort of planting plan that would go at least partway towards restoring at least a future canopy. That's my observation on that. As far as the collapsed wall is concerned, I think we have a precedent, at least one that I know of attempting to preserve these properties that are, in this particular area, so that everything doesn't erode all the way up to Rowayton Avenue. Alexis, have there been other similar rebuildings since we did that New Jersey barrier thing on McKendree?
Not since the McKendree. So these two of these properties rebuilt walls in 2007. But other than that, not there have been others up and down the 5 Mile River, but nothing I'd say in this immediate vicinity.
So they rebuilt rebuilt the walls in 2007, and they were not robust enough to prevent this current situation.
Right. So that's why this time around there is a structural engineer, as well as a an additional engineer to do the design.
So this is a little more professional and a little less DIY this
Right.
time around.
Hopefully this will be the last time that these applicants have to repair their wall.
Okay. Anybody?
I just had a question, Mr. Canis, just to confirm what's being proposed is not a masonry wall, but would be a precast footing and then a cast in place wall above?
That's correct.
Okay. And will the cast in place wall be smooth, or will it have, what will be the face of it?
It'll be a smooth wall.
Okay.
How long is it going to take? I mean, assuming we approve this and everybody else approves it, what's your timetable?
Okay. Actually, the contractor is here, so I'm going to ask him to raise his hand, and he can answer that question better than I could.
Okay,
Yeah, it probably it's going to take about a month or so.
a month.
Just
Okay.
I'm saying just to be on the safe side. Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, it's obviously a consideration because we're getting into tropical storm season.
Yeah, that's why we were planning on starting in August, providing everything gets
Right.
gets approved.
Right, that's on us. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioners?
Is going to be bringing any fill to the site?
We're only bringing in fill, again, for the record, Joseph Canis, we're only bringing fill to the extent that we need to backfill material that's been lost or put down crushed stone and base material. There will be no net increase in volume of material in the floodplain. So basically, we're not increasing elevation. We're not depositing fill that's going to reduce your flood conveyance or flood storage capacity.
Do the applicants who are here want to add anything? I don't know if it's Mr. or Ms. Cohen or Sadiq Khan and Weisheit. Do any of you want to, if any of you would like to chime in at this point, you're more than welcome.
I actually only have one thing to add. This is Marlene Cohen, that it was during Superstorm Ida that this happened, and the wind took down a tree that was there for decades. And that's what caused this. It was not the flooding.
Okay, it was the dislodging of the tree and the roots and everything that broke it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, commissioners. All right, I thank you all for this. We'll talk it over. Thanks.
All right, so just some business to take care of it. With all applications, I encourage you to stop by and have a look if possible. It's probably most easily viewed from 285. Or you can also go to the Carolyn Court, to the bridge. Don't cross the bridge, but you can look downstream from the bridge to see the area as well. And then these are intermediate applications. I just want confirmation that these none of you feel that it warrants anything larger than an intermediate application.
Okay, Darien is on board with this. I mean, I'm sure they're being talked to separately about.
Yes, so
About
the
the-
state statute and our regulations require notice to the adjacent municipality for any activity within 500 feet of a municipal boundary. So we sent official notice to the town clerk's office, and then the applicant has sent notice to the town of Darien inland wetland agent. And he hasn't called, so I don't think he's.
Do they have to go to P and Z here?
It will not need to go before the commission. No, it will need a zoning permit and a building permit due to the height of the walls and that the walls are within the floodway.
Okay,
But no commission approval is required.
okay, thank you. Thank you all. Okay, we will move on now to S-22-605, 8 Leslie Lane, construction of retaining wall adjacent to a wetland.
All right.
There was one good photograph that I saw in the on the website. That would be a good thing to drag out if you can find it.
And I can share my screen. So the Leslie Lane is in West Norwalk off of Weed Avenue, I guess. And some of you may remember this property and the adjacent property had different owners, but a violation, I want to say in 2019,
Yeah,
for some clearing in the front. And so that has been rectified. The previous owner did all that planting in the front. Let me just, I will share my.
that was a
screen.
retaining wall issue also, as I recall.
No, there was no retaining wall, just that slope there. But the new owner has moved in, and I have not actually been out there, but I'm assuming that all the plants that were planted by the previous owner are still out there. And the new owner noticed that there is a pretty sharp transition between the small bit of lawn area by the front of the house and the wetland that takes up most of the front of the property, and is proposing to do a low stone retaining wall to reduce the amount of erosion on that slope. And so the applicant is here. Mr. Mead, I can share my screen, or you are allowed to share your screen if you would like to display. Either way. You can.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Mead here, and I'm the new owner of Aylesbury Lane. I did actually purchase the property on the 8th of February this year. So we've been in the property for about 4 months now, just over 4 months. As Alexis mentioned, the previous owner had done some plantings, I think to rectify some work that she'd done previously. I would say most of those plantings, probably about 90 to 95%, have taken and appear to be growing. There were a few that actually didn't take and probably died off. But as of now, we've kind of left those in situ just in case they come back at the later part of the summer or into fall. But generally, I think from what I can see on the form that we actually got as part of our title, most of that rectification seems to be taking shape. I'm more than happy to share my screen. I've pulled up the document. So if you're okay with me doing that, I'll just go ahead and do that right now. Hopefully you can see that.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay.
So maybe I'll just talk through briefly what we're trying to do and then turn out questions. I don't have as professional of a presentation as the previous applicant. But what I've done here is try to pull together some photos of the property as it currently stands. Just kind of identifying where the slope kind of slopes from the lawn area into the wetlands, and then just a little bit of discussion around the proposal that we actually have. So I think, as you can see from these first couple of photos, the lawn here, we have a relatively small lawn area. It kind of runs from somewhere between at this far end, about 12 feet of lawn, to this far at this end to about 9 or 10 feet of lawn. And then it kind of tapers off at about a 45-degree angle into the wetlands. There's a photo later on which I can point out that kind of indicates where the wetlands are. There was markings there when we bought the property, small wooden pegs with blue tape around them that we can actually indicate. You can see a little bit of those on here, but there's a better photo later on. What we've noticed, and you can see a little bit on these pictures, is that there, even since we moved in and we've kind of moved from winter through spring into summer, there appears to be a fair amount of erosion already. You can see that rocks are beginning to appear where water's kind of had runoff. There's a few areas where we've actually had quite a lot of chipmunks, rabbits, squirrels that are kind of digging holes or burrowing holes. Where they've actually kind of burrowed holes, and the water's kind of from rain has actually kind of gone in there. It's kind of washing away. And what we're finding is a lot of the topsoil from up here, and I think the previous owner had maybe put some wood chips down, are kind of running off into the wetlands. Personally, myself and my family are very big into kind of nature. We love to kind of see nature. We love to see the animals, and we really don't want to have the wetlands destroyed. And in addition to that, we also like to actually maintain as much of the lawn as we can. It's a relatively small lawn, as you can see. So what we are proposing is building a retaining wall along this area that I've kind of marked with a rope. You just about see it here. The highest point will be about 4 feet high, which is pretty much this far end here. It then kind of tapers off to about 3 feet, and by the time it gets to the end here, it's down to about 6 or 9 inches. It kind of runs along that area. So that's what we're looking to actually to build. We'd like to actually put some steps in the center, pretty much adjacent to where you can see these steps. So as the steps kind of come down, we'd have the lawn, and then we'd actually have stone steps that kind of go down into here. Again, not going into the wetlands, but actually staying horizontal to this line, just to give us an opportunity to kind of go down, go around into the wetlands, utilize that part of the property, as much as we can. So that's something we'd like to kind of do as well. What you can see on here is these are the pegs that I've kind of marked. This is the one in the center. And we're looking to actually have the wall set back about 18 inches from that. This is the one that's further towards the driveway, again, about 18 inches from that. The next one actually is about 4 feet away. So these are about 18 inches. The next one's about 4 feet. And then it kind of goes around the corner. So it kind of then veers away from where that slope is. The type of wall we're looking to build is similar to this one. It's actually a friend of ours. I understand it's kind of, it's referred to as, I think, a dry look wall, but it's actually kind of cemented in. So rather than actually seeing the cement in there, it kind of, you still kind of see the stone, but it actually is kind of affixed into the wall. And that would be about an 18-inch wall, according to our contractor. I know there's a request to actually look at alternatives. So we did look at a couple of different alternatives. One was actually just to build a dry stone wall, so with no cement, no foundation, or anything like that. I think our neighbour has actually done that at number 6. They've actually kind of had that kind of dry stone. They've used relatively large stones from what I can see. The downside that we understand when we talk to various different contractors is that it is cheaper, but it also potentially has over time the chance of actually kind of moving, especially if you get heavy rain. It's possible that stone can get washed away a lot easier. And of course you can repile them up, but you never necessarily get the full structural strength that you might have in the first pass. So they would recommend that we kind of don't take that approach. And then the other one was actually to look at building a retaining wall similar to this, but actually using manufactured bricks, things such as Belgian blocks. A couple of companies out there that do them. Again, a cheaper option, but from our perspective, I think it wouldn't look as nice. And given the fact that there are quite a lot of stones around the wetlands, we kind of like the idea of trying to keep some sort of continuity between the standing stones that we actually have and that's actually how the wall would look. Other than that, we weren't given any other specific alternatives that would be viable and would kind of last a long period of time. I think there's a question around excavation and backfill. There's no excavation required, but we would look to actually kind of backfill with soil. So if I kind of come back to the picture here, with the wall coming along here, there'd obviously be where that 45-degree angle is, we would do some backfill with soil there. We'd look to seed it, just to actually, again, kind of maintain the strength of the upper lawn. But other than that, there would be no impact on the wetlands, no fill on the wetlands. So it purely and simply be.
Wait, Mr. Mead, is that a wall in the lower left in that picture?
Excuse me, say that one more time.
Is there a wall? I can't quite tell what it is on the lower left.
Yeah, there's a row of Belgian block that goes across here. So it's basically about a 10 feet, just a single line of Belgian block that kind of leads up to the driveway. I'm not sure if I have a picture of that. Let me just take a look.
Would you say that the line that Belgian block indicates is more or less the path that your stone wall would take?
So yeah, the stone wall would actually be on this red line here, which is basically just in from that, and it would kind of stop there. So it'd be a little bit further out than where that line of blocks would be.
Thank you.
I did do another, I think here, I just did a quick site map just to kind of give you an indication. I think this was in the package as well. these are my measurements. I didn't get a structural engineer or anything in, but I did actually kind of try to go through and peg out exactly where everything lies. So the line here is the grass line. So that's kind of where the slope starts. The line here, the second line is the proposed line.
Oh, I don't think you're sharing
Oh.
the plan.
Okay, let me try doing that again. Yeah, let's try that. Does that one work?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Apologies. So obviously this is the property. This is where the grass line currently comes along. This is the proposed line for the retaining wall, and the green line here is basically where the blue pegs are that I've kind of measured out from the property. I did kind of follow that off. Obviously, this is not our property, but this is kind of just following off into what I believe to be the wetlands in the park area next to us. So I think that the question that the commissioner had asked with regards to the Belgian block, basically the Belgian block kind of runs somewhere around this kind of area here, and this is our kind of a driveway. So it's really just the edging of the driveway as it kind of leads down the driveway path here.
Will your plan affect some of the trees that we saw in the photographs?
No effect on any trees.
Okay, good.
Perfect. Yeah. In fact, what we're looking to try to do, and I've kind of mentioned this to Alexis, is that we'd like to actually maybe do some plantings. We'd like to actually add to the plantings within the wetlands. We're very big into trying to encourage bees, moths, butterflies, that kind of stuff into the property if possible. So we'd like to actually try to add a few flowering plants, obviously from the list of available plants, into the wetlands to actually kind of encourage that. We'd also potentially like to add some fruit trees, which I believe are actually possible. Along this area here, this is where the wetlands go, and it kind of juts out around here. On the edge of that, we'd like to perhaps add some apple trees, again, to actually, it wouldn't be in the wetlands, but just to the edge of the wetlands. And that's probably a project we're going to do at the end of the summer once the wall's up and we know exactly how everything's kind of working. We'd like to potentially kind of add some fruit trees along there as well.
Okay. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, I guess I don't object to anything in concept. I do think we should have just a bit more, drawings, details, et cetera, on file so that, everything's out in the open and we know exactly how it will be done, where the line of disturbance is, erosion control, whatnot. So I would want to see that before I could have a decision on it.
I agree. We go from here to a more specific schematic.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand that, is that kind of a request to actually get a surveyor to actually kind of draw up the lines? Is that what the request is there, or?
I don't even know if. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. Well, I was just gonna say, Alexis. I think there's the greatest hits of what we'd like to see in this situation. And so I don't even really know if you need to have a surveyor, but we do need to have a little more detail about how the wall is built, where the erosion control fence, the silt fence is, for example, yada, yada, yada.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't think that you'll need a surveyor, but maybe we can set up a time to meet at City Hall and I can give you some examples and point to what has been mentioned. I think it's something that you could probably do yourself. It will just take a little bit more, as Commissioner Clocky said, a little bit more detail on the plan and maybe some cross sections. So.
Of course.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mead.
A pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it. Moving on to number 5, discussion and decision, S22 596 75 Witch Lane. Alexis.
Okay, so as you recall, this is a proposed pond dredging, and at a meeting long ago, you had made the decision that it warranted an outside consultant, a second opinion regarding the wetland functions and values. And wetland scientists have been very difficult to retain. They're all very busy. And I can attest that from the permitting end, there's a lot of activity going on in Fairfield County. So just earlier today, I believe that I finally have retained a wetland scientist. I received a bid at, it was around 5 o'clock. So they are going to start working. However, I just wanted to, and the applicant, I don't believe is here tonight, but I did speak to Wayne Archimone, who is the applicant representing the owner. So statutorily, you have 65 days to make a decision, or I'm sorry, 65 days to commence a public hearing. And once 65 days pass, you need to get an extension of time from the applicant. The applicant gave the full extension of time, which is an additional 65 days. What this all means is that the application was received on April 26th. If you add 65 days to that, you get to June 30th. But the applicant gave you a 65-day extension of time. That gets you to September 3rd. That's to open the public hearing. When talking to the consultant that I've almost retained, I forgot that you only have one scheduled meeting in August, which is on August 9th. So that means that you would need to schedule the public hearing to commence on the 9th of August. And you'd have to open that hearing, but it could be continued until a maximum of 35 days, which gets you only to your next meeting of September 13th. The retained consultant cannot get a report to me by the 9th of August, but could get it to me by the 23rd of August, which is when apparently you don't have a meeting scheduled. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. One, that you can go ahead and schedule the public hearing to be on the 9th of August. And two, that unfortunately, ideally, what happens is that this outside consultant does their assessment, gives you and I and the applicant the report. Then the applicant has the opportunity to amend their plan, or at least come up with a rebuttal, or do something with that information, and then submit a final, a revised plan. Then you go into public hearing, and then you discuss it, and then you make your decision. So this is just going to be a really contracted series of events for the applicant. And so at that September 13th, what I'm assuming will be a continuation to the September 13th meeting will be the first time that everyone is going to be talking about the second outside consultant's report, but it's also going to be the same night that the applicant will have to rebut and the same night that the public hearing will have to close. So just wanted to let you know that because it was
I'm going to
it's been
step
so
right
hard
up
to
and
find
ask
anyone.
whether staff has
Yep.
a recommendation as to what course we should pursue here.
No, I think just stay the course. So I did talk to the applicant. I explained the time frame. They are going to go back to the owners and explain this really tight time schedule. But I don't see them at this point. It is what it is. But
Does adding a second meeting in August help?
it might, yeah. So that might definitely be a possibility.
Well, let's look at that as a possibility. I don't know, we could probably get a head count in advance as to who's going to be around for that. And we can't do anything more about it tonight anyway. Yes.
Can we ask for a second extension?
No.
Just one.
So unfortunately, this is, yeah, we're at our, yep, they get a total of 65 days to contribute. And then you have to go with that.
Well, and the only other recourse would be if we let it expire or we voted to reject it and then had them apply again and just didn't charge them the application fee.
Right.
That
but-
would be a roundabout way of doing it too.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, I'm fine with rolling with it. I'm just
That
trying to
would
think of
be-
what all the options are.
I'd say that would be probably their second to worst.
Well, okay, so, but there's nothing we can do.
I'm
to-
crashing, sorry.
So by July 26th, we may have a clearer course as to what we ought to plan for. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay, good. So the possibility of a demolish and rebuild, if that's what Steve was talking about, or another meeting on the 23rd that we can schedule and see what workload we have at that point. We probably won't have very much, but we could have that. Okay,
right. And I don't know, I mean, is there generally for the ones of you that are here on the meeting, are you no commitment or anything, but for the 23rd, are you generally,
yeah, is there
would
anybody?
we have a quorum?
is
Would there be a
anybody
quorum?
Who knows that they can't make an August 23rd meeting? No, okay, well, it doesn't mean you have to be there, but there's an indication, Alexis.
Okay,
We have a lot of commissioners tonight, so, you know. All right, moving on to 20 Lancaster Drive. Alexis?
yes. So the last meeting, you were a bit more clear with the applicant as far as the requirements of the application. I spoke to the applicant today. He is going to start calling, he hasn't submitted anything new. He is going to start calling wetland scientists and soil scientists to see what it would cost. He has not yet filed the filing fee. So for this application, he did give me an extension of time because he is also a significant regulated activity and his application requires a public hearing. Without an extension of time, the public hearing would have to be held at the next meeting on July 6th. So he did say, sorry,
What date did you give?
he didn't give a date. He just said, I'd like to extend the application
July 26th, right?
July 26th.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm kind of breaking up. So he did say that he would like to extend the application for the pond dredge in order to get quotes from the scientists as recommended. So I think that not to speak for the applicant, but I think the applicant had a certain idea for the amount of expenditure the permitting project would take, and is probably considering whether it's worth investing in the proposed activity or not at this point. But we'll see what he comes back with as he calls around for the necessary consultants.
But he's doing what he said he would do and what we were asking him to do, at least at this point.
Some of it, yes.
Okay. All right, then we go on to 10 Willard Road, modification permit to install a culvert pipe. That was pretty exhaustively presented last time, and Staff has provided a draft resolution dated July 6th. And I think I'm going to move that that resolution be approved and that the application be approved. And we can have discussion during the motion. So I move that application S19 533, is it A, Alexis? Okay.
Yes, since it's
Yeah.
a modification, amendment.
Be granted to 10 Willard LLC for the property at 10 Willard Road with the conditions outlined in staff's memo, and that's for modification of permit to include the replacement of a head wall, installation of drainage components, and provide water course crossing with culverts instead of bridges. In a commercial property that we had already approved at an earlier meeting as far as the basics were concerned. So that's my motion, and I'm open for second.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Knight seconds. Now we can have discussion if anybody's got a problem with this. You want to review take another look at the pictures, or what would be, okay, Matt's nodding his head, so can we conjure up the photos there that we had?
I will work on it. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the water course. This is the area closest to, well, let's see, Willard. So I'm going to move along to some other, there were some where it was staked out, if I remember right.
Yeah,
So these
sorry.
stakes are where the culvert, the previously approved bridge, I guess that was the last one. Previously approved were bridges for these crossings. So this is the end of the vehicular access for fire trucks only. And then there's a proposed pedestrian path that would come across the water course and then into this area. And a culvert instead of a bridge is proposed there, as well as here. There they are. So those are the two areas of the proposed culverts. And then the head wall is just off the screen here, but I will go through that and then I'll go back to the
There it is.
drainage area. This is the head wall that would be replaced and heightened to be better in line with the approved grading that's around it. And then lastly, there are some drainage improvements that are in that are here that are in this area. That this is the
northeast.
just prior to where the water course begins, which is here at this outfall. Presumably there is another pre-existing pipe under here feeding this. And then, but on top of that has been an area of continued wetness. And so the applicant is proposing the yard drains and the outlet into the water course. So those are that's kind of the area. Again, the bridge is here, or the culvert would be here and here. And then the head wall is behind the photo taker. And then I can share. Would you like to see the site plan as well?
Well, I for one would be interested in seeing what kind of replantings are imagined for once.
So we're not proposing any amendment to the plantings. Part of this is there's a tremendous amount of plantings that need to go on, and all this invasive stuff needs to come out. And one of the main reasons that we asked to switch to a culvert is because this is getting clogged up with organics, and the culverts will allow us to try and maintain some flow and keep this thing moving. But on our original landscape drawing, you'll see there are a tremendous amount of native plantings that are going to go on where you see all that invasive green stuff right now.
No change. No
No,
change.
because it was extensively planted out before. The change to the culverts is really just to try and make this a stream rather than a ditch that doesn't move.
Okay. We keep our fingers crossed for that.
Me too.
Oh, Alexis, I have a question. Were there on the plans erosion control that was supposed to go around the stream? Because I'm not seeing any in the images. And it looks like the dirt and soil is very loose and directly adjacent to
So
the corridor.
I can answer that.
Okay.
Literally a week before those pictures were taken, we had to remove the erosion controls to build that fire lane that's required by the fire marshal. And what we did, I don't know if you can see, is we stacked rocks all the way across there that weren't there before to temporarily try and stop any problems. But the erosion control was literally where the fire lane was being built. But we certainly are happy to put it back now that that's constructed.
Okay. That would be great to see.
Although we're going to be, right now, we're actually in the process of putting in this grass grid that holds all that together. It's a plastic looping system, and it's about to be planted out with grass right now as we speak. These pictures are a little old.
And then for the in-stream work that's proposed new, I did not add a condition regarding sedimentation. I think that if the vegetated condition of the watercourse remains, I don't see much likelihood of downstream kind of progression, but we can certainly, add a condition that probably staked hay bales might work better for interim sedimentation erosion control measure when they're excavating for the culvert. But when they excavate that, where the culvert's going to be is going to be lower than the existing channel grade. So I don't know, it would take a lot to get sediment to go downstream. But
Yeah, and honestly, our hope is to clean this whole thing up, and we've been trying to be very careful about the whole thing.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, I think we can call a question. I move that the application be granted. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay. 198 West Norwalk Road. Corrective action, removal of vegetation, revegetation of a slope adjacent to a wetland or water course. I see that Mr. and Ms. Baker are here. I would, we went through a fairly detailed discussion of this last time around. And I visited, and what I found was different from what I expected to find. Can we pull up photos 9 and 10 from Mr. Baker's original submission? Just hang
Yes.
on to 9 for a minute and then move on.
I'll, which ones are not? Which,
Okay,
let's
okay.
Oh, oh,
That wasn't, bad.
tell me when to stop.
Yeah, okay.
Was that a okay
Is that
stop?
the end, is that the end of it? Okay, go back.
Oh, no.
Okay, that one. All right.
Okay.
Hold up, that's their view. One of the things that I didn't expect to see, which I did see, was that this open space that I think is important to the overall, landscaping the house and all that. That slope is closer to 60 degrees than anything else. And anybody who loses their footing at the top of it is going to tumble all the way down. And furthermore, this tree that you see on the left is one of a pair of very, very big trees with very, very large and healthy canopies that taken together shield this property. Can now maybe we could go to I think it's either the one before or the one after. No, it would be the one before then, the one before. No. Six, okay,
Maybe
go
it's,
down. I see on my screen 8, okay, and 9, so go back to 8. No, that's 9. Go up one more, I'm sorry about this, no.
That's
The
all
other
right.
way, Alexis. Scroll up,
Go to towards the top.
scroll up, yeah. No, the other way.
Okay.
Only 2 ways to go. Okay, the next, okay, there you can see on the far right is the other tree. And these trees are without foliage for, I'm going to say 30 feet or so, maybe more. But above that, they are really quite dramatic in terms of the canopy that they provide. This is a good view of the sort of ground cover and scrub and other vegetation that now exist on that slope. And that's the island, the tree that's out there on the other side of the water that's shown. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's nothing inherent in this slope as it is that threatens canopy for the wetlands. The canopy's there. The only thing that the Bakers seem to want to do here is to reduce the, I think maybe sassafras tends to grow up 3 or 4 feet high, but to just lop that off when it gets past a certain level. Most of this ground cover is well rooted and not looking like it's going to grow up at all. So those are my observations. Commissioner Brown, was that sassafras, that big wide?
This is sassafras. This is a tulip tree.
Yeah.
Yep, sassafras.
What's the large leafed thing that comes up that grows up straight? It's not in this picture. What is that? What is that? That plant right there in the.
Oh, that's a rhododendron.
Oh, okay. That's not what I was thinking of.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's a rhododendron. And these pictures were taken, as you see, in June, and technically I'm not as advanced as I thought I was. I had taken some pictures now, and it's just amazing to me how quickly these things grow, which is great.
I mean, given the fact that that's a nice 60-degree slope, there's really plenty of room for lower brush to grow and not impact the view.
Right.
Although it's still, you know, they have a boat down there and they have the right to go into it if they can get down to it and get back from it. So, commissioners, any observations? I know there was concern about canopy, and I just want to make sure that that gets addressed.
The concern wasn't so much the canopy. The concern was about, you know, there's healthy ways to prune a tree, and then topping a tree is not really beneficial to the wetland or to the environment. It creates a lot of damage to the tree, reduces foliage, creates chaos with leaders. You know, there's other ways if you want to maintain your view than topping a tree. You know, there's ways that you can prune it and other things, but I think topping the tree is detrimental to the environment.
Well, my understanding is that the Bakers do not intend to do any tree topping.
No, well, what was being done previously, we've been here 5 years. What was being done previously, I counted just before the meeting. There are 17 trees now of those sassafras, thin trunked trees now coming back up, 17 of them. And what was happening prior to our living here was that obviously this area was cleared at one point, and then these trees came up for the ground cover, et cetera. And as I said, when there's 17 of them, they were clipped on the top to maintain, so you could still have the view. If you let 17 of those trees grow all the way up and try to create space by skinnying them or, you know, leaving the tops up there and then trying to get it to see through, I mean, it's not pretty.
Yeah, I think it's he's not talking about the canopy trees when he refers to trees. He is talking about the smaller stuff that it had been, I'd say it was clear based on the assortment of vegetation growing in there that it had been, it never has been in a condition where there's a ton of shade here, because he was trimming back stuff like sassafras, which is that kind of that first successional tree that fills in after an area has been cleared. So it's just to clarify, it's not topping canopy trees. It's more multi-stemmed, smaller. I mean, they're
like
trees.
yeah.
But there's no indication that they were large trees that have been reduced. That he had, as he was saying before, they were about a 4-foot height. And then the reason that he had gotten the violation was because they were trimmed all the way down to the ground, and the ground vegetation, everything was kind of trimmed off other than the vinca.
I thought I'd save a few years of doing the topping work and just do it till it grew up again. And that was my error.
I visited the property, and I was, to be honest, there was a lot more vegetation than these pictures would imply. And to John's point about the degree of it, it's the east side. So it looked like, you know, that the water in the 5 Mile was getting a fair amount of shade even with what was there. So.
And I suggested to plant the bushes that were suggested down along the, you know, because there is, where there are trees on either sides of this that are closer to the water, I suggested planting the recommended 5 of those water resistant or whatever they are bushes to kind of help to retain the where the river meets the land. Yeah, you can see them on there where the river is. Yeah.
All right, I think.
So I did not do a draft resolution, in part because at the last meeting, you know, I really didn't have a lot of direction from you guys, and I know that there was talk about going out to the site. Sorry.
Well, I think in my view, having visited the site and having reviewed the materials that the bakers have supplied, it seems to me that what's described as the impacted area is now being very responsibly tended, and that the plan for adding the small items down by the water's edge, together with the general approach that's shown on the left and the right on that canopy of the trees, would suggest that you know, this is an area that does not need to concern us very, very significantly for very much longer. That's my view. Anybody else, please?
Agree with that.
All right, Alexis, I think you have enough, don't you?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Mr. and Mrs. Baker, thank you for your patience. And with luck, we'll get this resolved next meeting.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Bye.
Good night.
Okay, that does it, except for approval of minutes. Anybody have any comments about the minutes from the last meeting? I read them and they look fine to me.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Next item, election of officers. Alexis, we yield to you on be master of ceremonies for this.
well, you guys are such sticklers for formal procedure. I'm joking. So in the past, you've never done like a nominating committee or anything like that. In the past, what you've done is someone nominates the commissioner of their choice to be the chair, and then there's a bit of discussion and potentially a consensus, or at least a majority that says sounds good, and then you kind of do a vote, and that's been it.
So it's not a motion second, it's just
It's just a nomination, I
more
guess.
personal in that.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So seeing as you don't have a nominating committee, or, you know, none of you were really in charge of seeking out your next chair and vice chair, you know, it makes it awkward to move forward. But if you want to nominate someone, or if you want to be the chair, like Steve has raised his hand volunteering to be the chair, that's fine too.
I was gonna nominate somebody.
I second the nomination of Steve.
Well, somebody recoup this for me. Did Steve nominate himself?
I was gonna nominate Cheryl, but now see, this is the awkward part.
Well, somebody nominated you.
Well, yeah.
Who?
And now in hindsight, I wish I should have done the,
Well, who nominated you? Just out of curiosity?
Commissioner
Matt did.
Pence.
Huh?
Pence.
And I'll third Matt's suggestion there.
So seconded by Catherine and thirded by Cheryl.
Okay, so we could, I mean, if we wanted to go and find that wine bottle before 8 o'clock, we could all just decide with a vote as to whether or not we want Commissioner Clocky to become Chief Executive Clocky. Is that right? Alexis, that's what I need. Is that?
Oh,
not
yes, sorry. Yes, yep, you would, I would, so I think that Clocky would probably have to
Okay, so
give an indication that he accepts
all in favor of Commissioner Clocky being the next
or not.
Lord Hypogandrum of.
Can we get a speech out of them, or?
Wave
No,
their hand.
okay, I'll vote yes.
This is not to throw anybody else off, but okay, I see where I don't see any hands not up.
I'll abstain.
Congratulations. Yeah, you can abstain. Okay, now do we need to go through the same thing again for
Why
vice
not?
chair, or can he just?
Absolutely,
appoint
that
somebody?
was a riot.
I nominate Cheryl Brown for vice chair.
I second that.
Third.
Fourth.
We can have, okay, a nomination for Cheryl Brown, who's
Looks
as
like
yet
a
not,
Oh my gosh, the pressure here.
I know, I was gonna say, you haven't taken a Sherman. You know, I will not serve if elected. I will not run if nominated. Alexis, I think we have a team here.
Well done.
Is anybody, and I don't see any tears. Does anybody have any observations about our election? No, hearing none.
John, this is all with the understanding that you're not going anywhere too, so.
Oh, no, I'm sticking around. It's time for old white men to get out of the way is all. Besides which I can't be chairman again because of the rules. And I opt not to be vice chairman because that's what Putin did. And I don't like that. Anyway, I'm happy to stay on board. I have 4.5 years left, according to the mayor. So I think I'll plan to do it, inshallah. Comments of staff, reports of the senior environmental officer.
Let's see, the planning and zoning office, which includes the conservation office, has had a fair amount of employee turnover of late. So we actually, the last, since late April, 3 people have resigned. And one of those was, we have 2 land use technicians. Those are the, if you recall, before this kind of meshing with planning and zoning, there was an environmental compliance officer that just did the conservation and aquifer work. We now have 2 land use technicians that kind of do a combination of inspections for you and also inspections for zoning. And Amelia was one of those land use technicians. And then the other land use technician is a person that left, that resigned.
Is Amelia
So
still?
now and so Amelia is still here, but she is no longer a land use technician because one of our senior planners, or the senior planner, resigned also. And so when the senior planner resigned, there was a lot of internal promotion, and Amelia is part of that promotion. So she is now the city's land use planner. And so we are looking for a new land use tech that does inland wetland work. So I just wanted to, first of all, let you know that Amelia has a new title, and will be continuing to come to some inland wetland meetings, but probably not as consistently. And that I hope to be hiring a land use tech that has some wetland and environmental background.
Are we seeing fewer violations as a result of this? I mean, there's less time to go out and look at these.
I have some violations that I need to issue. We haven't come across any active violations. We've had complaints where we've gone out, but it's either they've gotten a violation warning or it has not been a violation. There are a few instances where there has been work done, but it was in the less recent past that need to get some violations from me. I do continue to work on old violations. Some of some of the least compliant. I've been trying to work on getting those moving forward so that we don't have open violations on the books.
Okay.
So that's kind of
Steve,
where we are. Yeah.
Your carnival, your monkeys.
Oh, that's right.
There's not, wait, and is this enacted now? Are you saying we need to move forward? There's nothing we can do to help Alexis find more people, I'm fairly sure.
Oh, it's
No.
We're up to an item on the agenda, which
Comments
is
of
now your
commissioners.
responsibility, is what I'm saying.
I see. All right.
Comments of commissioners, report of the commission chair, that would be.
For the
good.
commission chair, you're right. Well, I still think until we adjourn, you're the chair. No, or am I now?
Okay, I don't have anything, I have nothing to say.
I don't
I
either.
think you're, I think you're it now.
right,
I did
well,
also,
thanks.
What?
I forgot one thing.
That was
At the
smooth.
last meeting, you talked about we talked about kind of some kind of written notice and reaching out to the property owners whose properties intersect with wetlands or watercourses. I don't know if I mentioned it then, we've had a problem with our GIS license. We haven't had any GIS for a couple weeks, which we now realize that we really rely on it for everything. But at the next meeting, we'll have some firm numbers. We basically haven't been able to do anything, including that. Not forgotten.
Yeah, I think some sort of written notices. When I visited Bruce Baker, is kind of rehammered because he didn't even know, that he was like cutting down too much. And as I said before, somebody who lives in the wetlands, and my first time meeting you, Alexis, was reporting a neighbor and then realizing I think I cut down too much stuff too, so, but.
Can I ask a question? Do we have interest among commissioners to amend the agenda moving forward to have a specific time to comment on conservation specific concerns? Because honestly, I get carried away with just, the inland wetland, agency enforcement, and sometimes I forget to put on the other hat and think about more proactive, wider reaching things.
I wonder whether or not we couldn't accomplish something similar by just making sure that when we look at individual applications, that we go a little bit farther afield than what specifically.
Well, I like to have them in two separate categories, to be completely honest, because I think our mission as the Inland Wetland Agency is very specific, and I'm hesitant to overreach. I've been a part of overreach in however many years I've done this, and I don't want to do that. I want to avoid that. And so by bifurcating the two entities, at least, on paper, we don't have to say or do anything about it, but it can at least be on there as, okay, let's take a step back from slapping people on the wrist for doing whatever they did and talk about, okay, big picture, where are we at? What can we do? Do we have initiatives we want to go with, et cetera, et cetera?
So you're talking maybe adding like a conservation initiatives after the minutes, but before the comments.
Sure.
As a kind of a placeholder for conservation initiatives and other stuff.
Sure. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
That makes sense.
I think it makes sense because oftentimes you're really focused on what the majority of the meeting has been about, and it just earmarks it or pricks you to say, think about the other roles.
Well, maybe it kind of like, sometimes I'm feeling kind of Debbie Downer at the end of a meeting just after, getting beat up or, having to beat somebody up. And then we can just have an opportunity, at least at the end, to talk about, positive, carrots instead of sticks, I guess. Yeah, okay.
I will add it to the next agenda.
And the other only thought I had about agenda, Alexis, is that at the beginning, I've always wanted a mission statement. And I haven't ever gotten around to that just because it's, item 473 on my list of things that I want to do. But in the same vein as what I said before about, the two responsibilities that we have and the two different hats we wear, I think it behooves us to be clear at the beginning what we're there to do, and that might also save us time in the long run with people trying to convince us of things that really aren't under our purview. And also to make them maybe comfortable with the understanding that, we understand that we're just property owners too. We're just here to enforce this statute. And, something to the fact that we want to be as objective and fair as possible, but yet, fulfill our whatever statute, rule, mission. But so anyway, I'm all ears if anybody has any thoughts on that between now and the next time we meet. Can't guarantee I'm going to get around to it, but it was just another thought. So I guess maybe it doesn't go on the agenda until we actually have something to say. But That was just another thought. And I was raising my hand to nominate Cheryl, just for the record.
And so the mission statement would be an umbrella for both inland wetlands and conservation, or would it be two kind of separate or?
Yeah, or maybe honestly, because what people are mostly tuning into is inland wetland agency enforcement stuff. I would probably make it mostly about that, and maybe even read off verbatim what's in. I mean, I've got a printed copy of the statute right behind me, right? Just like a one-liner, be like, we're here to enforce this based on this. And then, yeah, we can also mention that we also, this is also the Conservation Commission, and this has a different purpose, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be more than 30 seconds. I just thought it'd be nice to get it out there. It kind of like how what Alexis does before a public hearing, where we're like, listen, keep it on subject, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
will,
don't need to worry about traffic.
If you
Right.
get into it.
I'll look through my
it's
files.
deep and wide. I mean, you're talking about a carbon dioxide sink. You're talking about space for unexpected and unusual volumes of water that's affecting our town as well as everybody else's. You're talking about trying to get ahead of something rather than chasing after it after it's broken. There's a lot that just affects the wetlands. I mean, it's I mean, you got a mission statement that goes on for 3 pages. And
that's not the intent. I think, I don't think we need to go there. I think we just need to, very briefly state why we're here, because I think sometimes people misunderstand that, whether they're the public that wanting to comment on something, or it's an applicant, who doesn't just quite get what we care about.
Mhm.
And then, again, honestly, it's selfish to a certain degree, because I don't want to spend the time listening to someone tell us a bunch of stuff that really isn't relevant to us. But also, mostly I just want to have clear air before we start.
So a very long time ago, there was, I'm just searching my files, a previous chair had written up a kind of what you're talking about, kind of a introduction, and I haven't found it yet, but I'll continue to look, and if I don't find it, I will write to her and see if she possibly, she probably burnt it the day after she had it, but well, I don't know if that was, yeah, maybe. I'll think back, but this was a very long, 20 years ago. There was something similar, so I will search, and then if not, I can help you develop a statement. And then we can also develop some kind of written statement for applicants. One of the things that we're doing in zoning right now, because we're going to have all these new employees, hopefully, is writing out all of the procedures. And I think it would probably be helpful also for applicants to kind of have a understanding of like what to expect now that you're an applicant before the Wetland Commission Agency.
Cool.
I think that'd be helpful because, as I sit here and think about from somebody who's just coming in and doing an application, there's similarities that sometimes are between the applications, and it can cause somewhat confusion because there's not necessarily congruence in terms of what's in everybody's application, or things aren't quite complete as to what the commissioners would need to see in order to be able to make a decision. And so one of the questions I have is like, is there not something that says it doesn't come to a commissioner's meeting and the clock doesn't start running unless like fees have been paid or these certain things that we know you're going to need because it does register as a significant activity, or it does.
Right. And so it does. So the way that the regulations are written, they do spell out what each level of application requires. But in the past, the agency has been very lenient with what's, this is sometimes required, but not other times. So you can certainly look through their regulations themselves and assess whether, what's listed there is still applicable or warranted for all situations, and maybe it might be better to clarify and have requirements across the board and then say, but this might be required. I don't know. That's a tough call. And then for a fee, your regulations don't require it, other than they do say that you can deny an application for incompleteness if the fee is unpaid at any time. So yeah, those are very good.
I just think sometimes for a layperson, like it's confusing that sitting on the hearings and looking at all the other applications before them, and they look at pictures and they're like, why doesn't this wetland? I'm here because I've got all these boundary issues and border, and then I'm looking at another picture of somebody whose lawn just right abuts up to a fence right on the wetland, or so it just creates kind of a questions about like, well, what's the standard or something. I mean, I don't know if it comes up, but it kind of makes it can make it confusing or feeling
right
willy-nilly, I guess.
Right.
What the word is.
And the way that the wetland regulations, there really isn't a standard unless the kind of the commission at the time establishes a policy, I guess, but the regulations themselves are very much based on individual properties, and so it's an assessment of the characteristics of the wetland at that specific property and the surrounding area of that specific property. So it's very much like a one-by-one assessment, very different than the structure of zoning, for instance, where zoning can say, zoning could say within 10 feet of any inland wetland or any water course, there has to be a buffer, and within 30 feet of any tidal wetland, there has to be a buffer. Zoning can do that kind of next to all wetlands. But for inland wetlands, it's a individual impact assessment. So it's the way that the statute is set up, it does make it very hard to kind of have a consistency without within the way that the regulations are written. And it really is based on that individual, each individual wetland.
There's no one size fits all for anything, really.
No, and there's no room really within the wetland regulations to require that as part of the regulations. That really comes with a policy. Like I know that a lot of people, for example, in the past, people have come to me and say, "Oh, I wish that we had the town of Wilton's regulations. They're much more strict." And I laugh because the Wilton regulations, I used to work for Wilton, and our regulations, although they have increased their buffer, not their buffer, their upland review area. So they now have a 100-foot upland review area from both wetlands and water courses, where yours are 50 and 100. But other than that recent change, the regulations themselves are pretty much verbatim. But what is different is the commission and what's been approved and what's been denied. So you do have a lot of power. It does take a lot of work, right? I mean, I think you guys all can see that. But as I get to know, and group dynamics are always hard to kind of feel out. But as I get to know, this group, it definitely becomes easier for me to tell applicants, no, you're gonna need this. And I do a lot of that. And they say, well, I'll give it a try. I feel like a broken record where I'm like, so you're gonna need a silt fence, you're gonna need this, and well, we'll start off with this and we'll see what they say. I'm like, okay. And when they don't, if they give a lot of pushback, that's when I do that preliminary review letter and put it in writing so it's crystal clear. But yeah,
As long as everybody realizes that Chairperson Clocky's got the power now.
All I do is keep the meeting going as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. You'll see. You'll see. Speaking of keeping the meeting going,
I'm gonna move to adjourn.
I second. Thank you all. Congratulations, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you very
Night.
much. Good night.
Right.